Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Gomes. It's nice to see you, everyone, again this week. It's the second day of September as I'm recording this in the afternoon. And so we're still in the backwash of the full moon, and I'll explain that in a second. The Also, we have, um, and it's been kind of an intense full moon, so I'll share that with you in a few minutes. Uh, we do have some upcoming collaborations on this particular channel. I'm going to be working with Alan and Alan, Paul Manley, and Jean Karazian, and Gary O'Toole, and of course Lolita Donatello Rybak. As as the weeks roll on, I'm hoping to get some more people in to share information and their specific set of skills with you. Gary and Ellen have both recently written books. I'm in process. I've been in process for a long time, but it is coming along, and we should have something. I'm hoping by early next year. The other thing to let you know is this channel is about Vedic astrology. It's a bit different from Western astrology. We use the same signs, uh, basically the same planets, but the Indians have a few different planets and a few different techniques than Western astrology does. The further back you go, the more in common you see the two systems actually have. But again, they're not really tied together uh, at at the hip. But there are certain Indian astrology techniques, like harmonic charts, which have crept their way into Western astrology. There are a few Western techniques which have crept, such as Tajika or Hori astrology, which seems to have originated in India, but were modified when they hit the West. And also, so Hori astrology is astrology asking the question at the moment as to what the outcomes will be. And finally, Varshapal or annual horoscopy seems to be have come, at least certain forms of it seem to have come from Tajikistan, which is essentially right next to Pakistan. So there's been a shared set of systems that have developed over time. These are as systems don't communicate with each other, they tend to diverge in how they approach things. So Indian astrology uses a sidereal or a star-based zodiac. So the dates of the signs are roughly the starting dates of the signs are roughly the 15th of every month. The starting dates of the signs and the 15th of the month after they would start in Western astrology. So that pushes your Western sign back almost one whole sign by now. So when you hear me referring to Aries, it doesn't mean I'm not talking about people who are born. I'm talking about people born between April 15th and May 15th, not people born between March 23rd and April 22nd. And the same is true for every other sign of the zodiac. I do teach. I do teach individual students. Excuse me. I do teach online at the American College of Vedic Astrology. I've been an astrologer for roughly 33 years. And also, let me just see, you can look up a lot of my biographical data online. I've also been assisting with Saptarishi Astrology, Saptarishi Astrology. with a gentleman named Sunil John, who's like a wonderful person. He's given a lot to the astrological community. And, so I'm really pleased and honored to be working, at least in a small capacity, with him. Also, I do have my own school. I do have my own students. I do have my own reading practice. So if you're interested in a reading with me, please contact me at 508 525 0001. We can discuss what your reading options are when you contact me. There's no commitment if you call me or text me. You know, it's just a discussion of what I can provide. I can also provide some remedial measures, some traits, uh, or some ameliorations in the chart. And by ameliorations, I mean if you have bad combinations, there are certain things that can modify them, lessen them, or even eliminate them. And for those more involved problems, I have contacts with people like Pundit Samavejula, who does elaborate yagas with a variety of priests in India. I also know other individuals who do that service, and I can refer you to them. So I think, without further ado, let's get on to the astrological weather this week. We have had, so let's look at the chart. Let's pull up the chart and see what we can see. Okay, that sounds creepy enough. All right, so let's share this. All right. So I normally like to do this a few times just to make sure that you can see the screen. I don't think that one went through. Also, as I told you before, I've started my speech lessons, and they are connected with my neurological condition, as I told you before. So this won't make me um, an incredible speaker, but it will make me a bit easier to understand. And I'm deliberately over articulating right now, and trying to slow down in my speech because my voice modulates I'm aware of the flaws I have in my voice, let's put it that way, without enumerating every one. So if I sound a little bit like I'm William Shatner, it's mainly because he enunciates extraordinarily well. Um, he overemphasizes every word. And that's what I'm trying to do right now. I don't know if I'm successful, but we'll see. Okay, so this chart so the full moon occurred actually on August 31st. Okay, this was the second full moon this month. Yeah, that's considered unusual, and it's called a blue moon or a harvest. I think we're calling this a harvest moon right now. And that's a bit unusual. It's a bit unusual to have two full moons during 1 month. It's not unheard of. There are 13 lunar cycles per year. There are 12 months, so something's gotta happen. There's gonna have to be at least one overlap during a year, but this this time it happened in August. Now this happened also when we had the moon was in Aquarius. Now the reason this is significant is because Aquarius right now is undergoing a Saturn transit. The sun right now is in the seventh house from Saturn. So that makes pretty much everybody feel like they're under a great deal of pressure. Okay. Um, and I think one of the things that you'll find is people getting very pushy and very aggravated. Also, communications are really bad because we have a retrograde Mercury in the chart, right? So this is a combination for um, exaggeration to a certain extent for feeling depressed or for feeling down or for lying. It's not as strong a line combination as certain other combinations are, but it certainly is there. And the Lord of Virgo, which is um, Mercury, is one of the retrograde planets. So you'll actually see people resorting to previous lies. Okay, so um, I don't have to, no matter which side of the political fence you're on. Um, I'm seeing a lot of revisitation of previous misrepresentations or misunderstandings, at the very least, uh, on the news media right now. And I'm also seeing the news media sort of like buckling down and exaggerating those opinions, exaggerating those perspectives. Now, again, keep something in mind. When I say these things, I have nothing inherently against or in opposition to any politician, any news media outlet. I'm essentially explaining behavior. I just feel duty bound to tell you about combinations in which people seem to be misrepresenting or trying to suppress information. Saturn's aspecting the sun, so they're trying to suppress information. Also, Saturn's retrograde. Saturn and Rahu are the planets of the masses, um, and they're not the planets of the elites, but Jupiter is the planet of the elites. Sun is the planet of the elites or the ruling class, and Jupiter is the advisor to the ruling class. Okay, in Vedic astrology, so it's not that I'm trying to paint Jupiter in a bad light, but basically he's the teacher of the devas or the gods. Um, and the gods are essentially the ones who maintain order or maintain um, dharma in the world. And that essentially assures that things will keep on functioning as they have functioned before. Now, this is not necessarily a bad thing, but if Jupiter's with Rahu, it's teaching a false dharma, it's teaching something which is a little bit suspect. Saturn aspecting Jupiter tends to um, corrupt or damage that knowledge. So if anybody comes across saying that the state of the republic is in danger if my candidate doesn't win, or will never recover from the situation if my candidate doesn't win, know that both of them are lying. Okay. And or they're misrepresenting information. That's a political tactic. Politics almost requires a certain amount of misrepresentation. I wish it didn't, but it seems to be like a necessary component. Also, Jupiter's Lord is Mars. So this is Aries over here, and it's in Mercury sign. So there'll be a lot of misrepresentation over the next couple of months, and a lot of rush for prosecution from both sides of the aisles. so I wouldn't be terribly surprised. So right now we're kind of engaged in what I would call a propaganda war, and that both sides seem um, determined to tell you how dangerous it will be if the other side wins. That's standard practice um, in politics and in media. By the way, I was reminded um, just recently in reading something that I ran across that essentially media, the illusion of impartiality in media has been it's been kind of a 20th century um, design. Most media outlets before the 20th century were unabashedly or um, or obviously biased. They had a position that they wanted. That was why newspapers were started. It was never. Now again, if they could make a little bit of money on the side, since essentially most media outlets are capitalists, and those that aren't capitalists are essentially connected with the government. Um, so there's not really a whole lot of purity you're getting from any media outlet. Okay, I don't care who says they're bad or they're bad. There's not really um, a lot of independence. Number one, in media. Number two, you have our advertisers. Number three, in public media, you have external controls and policies which have a certain political standpoint. Okay, so the same is true eh, no matter where you are, to be truthful. Um, and it's not, obviously, some media outlets are better and more unbiased than others are, but all media outlets are biased to a certain extent. Otherwise, they wouldn't be, otherwise, we'd be just getting like a series of facts thrown at us all the time. And I haven't seen that really in my entire life. Um, so it's just something to be aware of when you're watching news that these people really don't. Again, I've said this many times, excuse me, many times. Media outlets don't care about giving you the truth. They care about whether or not you're watching them. Okay. If the truth is given to you, that's a happy coincidence, but it's not really what they're in business for. They're in business to gain viewers. They're in business. Most media outlets are sales outlets. Okay, just to be quite honest with you. So Mercury right now is kind of connected with the government because this Mercury Sun combination is very close. Media is almost always connected with the government because the Sun and Mercury are never that far apart. They're only like odd times when they're not. And I think overall, and again, this is government has different sides to it or different people connected with it. So one party may be the heroic party. That's the party you like. Another one may be the sleaze party. That's the party you don't like. But it's really not. The idea of objective truth in media is really kind of an illusion. I mean, I hate to break it to you, but it really is. And I'm a former journalism major. That doesn't make me an expert on journalism, but um, I I saw it enough to know Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
Okay, I'm taping my show right now.
Oh, good, okay. No, I don't need anything. I just want to know how you were, that's all.
Okay, all right. I'll be up in a few minutes.
Well, no, you don't have to come up. It's okay. I don't need anything.
All right, how do you feel?
Not good. Bye.
All right, bye. All right, sorry about that. Let me get back to this. So I, so I think when I go off on these terrains, I'm not really trying to um, convince you that your position or who you believe is wrong. I'm just trying to make you aware of the problems that exist in just relying on one set of facts or perspectives. Um, and it's been really problematic ever since the United States, in particular, has entered the Rahu Mahadasha, and also since there have been certain world events, uh, roughly starting around 2000 and one, but dating back far before that. So, so I don't think there's any. So I'm not trying to gain anything from this. The other fact here is Jupiter's aspect in the Sun and Mercury. So again, there's going to be like a sheen on media, which will make them seem okay. Uh, Now, in terms of the anger levels, Mars is aspecting the Moon. Mars is aspecting Jupiter and Rahu. So that'll make people more aggressive, more determined to um, throw their perspectives at you. Okay. And also, it can produce, and again, the Saturn aspect on Jupiter hasn't gone away. Um, any inflationary relief we've seen over the past few months has really just been temporary, mainly because of that Saturn Jupiter aspect. And also, and it'll continue because Saturn's going to be in this particular sign. Um, and Saturn's going backwards, so it's going to bring back a lot of the issues we saw in early 2022 with rising gas prices and things like that. So that's not going to go away. In terms of health, we have had a resurgence in health issues because of the COVID strain, the new COVID strain. I do not believe this will cause shutdowns. There is nothing in the chart which indicates this should cause shutdowns. Um, I'm not at all convinced that because this is a mutating virus, that you can develop an effective vaccine for it. Um, so I'm not a doctor, but I'm just looking at the planetary configurations, and this is slippery. We'll probably have another um, problem with illness and immigration in about 2 years. Okay. And this is mainly because of the Saturn Rahu conjunction in Pisces. And that'll affect Virgo, which is a sign connected with illnesses. But the reason we're seeing a resurgence in illnesses right now is mainly because of Mars entering Virgo. So Mars is in an enemy sign. It's in the weakest part of the chart. Um, K2 and Mars are kind of far away from conjunction, but um, there's danger of war, let's say towards the middle of next year, or I'm sorry, in a couple of months, but I don't see it happening. I don't see a lot of factors piling up in Libra, or a lot of factors piling up in that would actually generate a war. Um, the other thing is, though, I can see a lot of factors which indicate economic downturn over the next couple of months, maybe a couple of panics on Wall Street, especially around October 26th to November 7th, and maybe even for certain politicians' assassination attempts. Now, this doesn't localize to the United States. We already had assassinations occur in, I believe it was in Ecuador, and uh, France also is going to be going through some major issues. So will Germany, so will England. Um, that doesn't mean all these countries are going to be prone to assassination attempts. So is Canada, by the way. So there's a lot going on right now that has been frustrating um, parties on both sides of the fence. Both sides are a little bit fearful in terms of one side wants to see the world disrupted, and by disrupted, I mean disrupted in a good way. So disruptions don't necessarily have to be bad. Disruptions can actually mean, okay, we're starting to look at ways to help more people or uh, upset controls that the society has put on individuals. And other sides are worried about societal instability because of those disruptions. So I think this is what will be an ongoing struggle over the next 5 years or so. This isn't going to go away anytime soon. And I think you're going to see a very, very hectic year in 2024. But again, not a disastrous one. The economic downturn, I don't think is going to be a cliff like we experienced in 2007, 2008. I don't think there is some danger that real estate will um, have problems, especially around November through December. Okay, and that's the Mars K2 conjunction. All right. So again, K2 goes into the sign in December. Mars comes into the sign in late October, November. That'll give disruption to real estate. But I think overall, from the chart, what we're looking at is a lot of focus on immigrations worldwide, not just in the United States, worldwide. And also a lot of focus on potential Earth um, catastrophes, like earthquakes, tornadoes, fires, because of Mars being in this particular sign. Where it gets hit is really going to depend on the country's individual chart. And we'll look at the map for the entire um, world in a few minutes. But again, I wouldn't trust orthodox or unorthodox thinking right now. I would essentially just wait and see how things flash out. Uh, there is a rush to get the trials done for Donald Trump. I'm going to tell you my bias. I think the trials definitely are politically motivated, but so are the investigations of Joe Biden's family. I mean, it's it's not really it's not really shocking to see. There's something there in both cases. Okay, um, so I so again, this isn't like I don't think anybody really thinks about it. This shouldn't be a startling revelation, but I don't think a lot of people really think about it. If I can be blunt. So 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 essentially, let's go to Aries. We'll start on the weekly forecast. Aries has Jupiter and Rahu still in the same sign. They haven't. Looks like the charts haven't changed at all. But Jupiter's in a new nakshatra now. Okay. Or I'm sorry, Jupiter's still in Bharani nakshatra. Bharani is I like to joke it's the purple dinosaur nakshatra, but that's really just being silly. Bharani is connected with life, death, and rebirth. Okay, so children to a certain extent. This is to a certain extent where the abortion issue resides. Is this particular combination right here? The abortion or the pro-life position resides. Is this combination right here? And you'll probably see some more action on this as we get more towards the end of the year. But for Aries, let's talk about Aries in particular. A lot of expenses, a lot of tightening of finances because of Saturn aspecting the first house. Moon is in the fourth house, expenses due to property. We've already said this many times before. Expenses due to relationship partners. Venus is retrograde. K2's in the seventh house. And I think with Mars in the sixth house, this sign has to be careful about illnesses, about getting sick. The 11th house has Saturn in it, so friends will be a little bit of a down drag on you, and family members will be a little bit of a focus. They'll demand a lot of attention, okay, because of the Sun Mercury combination in the fifth house. Again, some things you'll find you'll have to do over in the work situation, in the work scene, but they won't be that bad. This will be over by mid-September, this Mercury retrograde. Taurus is up next. Taurus has Venus in the third house, retrograde. So again, there's this feeling of moving backwards for this sign, going over and trying to recover things it once had. Again, there is a lot of expenses because of friendships and trying to impress friends. And I wouldn't recommend doing it, but that's what the sign actually indicates. The good news is this combination does give a lot of ambition for money, a lot of ability to pull money in. Sun and Mercury, Saturn's aspect in the fourth house, a lot of stress at home, a lot of stress career-wise, just people having a lot of extra responsibilities if they have this particular rising sun or moon sign. Mars in the fifth house gives some arguments with lovers or children. And K2's in the sixth house. So again, you have to be careful about viruses and catching flus and bugs. It isn't necessarily just COVID. There are a lot of, because of the climate in certain parts of the country, there are a lot more chances to catch illnesses than normal. So I've noticed in the Northeast here, it's been very wet, and that brings out more bugs, more insects, more mosquitoes, and things like that. So again, it depends on where you're located, but certain climatic conditions will actually cause illnesses to manifest, and the climate hasn't been good this year. For Gemini rising, so this sign looks okay for career, a lot of improvement in career, some stress on relationships though because of Saturn aspect in the seventh house. My apologies for jumping ahead to Gemini before I was done with that particular sign. Okay, Gemini has a potential for fame and reputation, and because of the Gati Lagna being in the first house, that's actually good. They are talking a lot about relationship life, though. There's a lot of disappointment in relationship, a lot of frustration with relationship life, even some problems with friends because of relationship life. So relationship people who you thought were your friends were actually turned out to be enemies, and they'll subvert your relationship life for and try to steal it. People will talk a lot about lost relationships with this rising sign. For the Sun and Mercury in the third house, this isn't a bad placement. It gives a lot of focus on home life. Mars is in the fourth house, a lot of anger connected with relationship patterns. Mars is aspecting the seventh house. So people will feel betrayed or used by relationship partners to a certain extent. K2's in the fifth house. It's kind of an unhappy time for Gemini risings in terms of relationship. That won't last long. You'll get some good opportunities for relationship life around December, but the next few months look to be a little bit difficult. And K2's in the fifth house, so children will be a little bit depressed or isolated. Not necessarily suicidal, but they'll be they'll be a little bit down. Saturn's in the ninth house, good for work, good for and the career focus may change a little bit this week and this month because of the moon being in Pisces, and that's the 10th house. So the person may change their focus a little bit. Jupiter and Rahu are in the 11th house. So again, it's that fair weather friends or friends who are pretending to be something they're not. Combination showing up. So that's sad. For let's move on to Cancer. But a lot of this will start to go away. Let me just say this for Gemini. A lot of this will start to go away around September 4th, and you'll start to see people feeling better and feeling a little bit more optimistic about their futures, and a little bit more cold-hearted, actually, as about 2 weeks from now. So for Cancer, Cancer has Venus retrograde in the first house, is in Ashlesha Nakshatra, so there can be, again, feelings of betrayal or relationship partners using you for their own gain or just using you. And so, again, it's one of those points in the chart which is a little bit tricky to negotiate. And again, the house of friends is ruled by Venus, and the house of home is ruled by Venus. So children will be affected by this perception that they can't trust friends. Sun and Mercury are in the second house. Actually, not a bad placement for financial gains. And Mars is in the third house. It will make this sign much more aggressive, much more willing to fight. And the Mars Moon opposition, they'll actually get help from women. From this sign, K2 sits in the fourth house, so there'll be some feeling of detachment at home. Jupiter and Rahu will give a career boost. Moon in the ninth house will also give a career boost. Saturn in the eighth house, again, difficult for relationship partners. Relationship partners will seem to be difficult to reach or understand. And I think when you have this kind of a combination, you have people are going to get angry very easily, and that's going to last throughout most of really until about the middle of the week. Okay. I think overall, when you have this kind of a combination in a chart, you have a lot of planets near the first house, and it becomes even more true of Leo. We're going to get to that in a second. The person's kind of self-focused or self-absorbed, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but they're not really focusing on things they should do. The saving grace of this is that Jupiter's in the 10th house, so they'll know they have to continue with their career, and they know they'll have to focus on their children because the children will demand attention, and they'll have to focus on money. So it's not entirely dire, but it is really kind of for Gemini and Cancer in particular, it's difficult relationship-wise. For Leo, Sun and Mercury are in the first, but again, keep something in mind. When relationships turn into difficult situations, it's always a good idea to reassess relationships and figure out whether or not they're helping you or hurting you. Let's go on to Leo because I'm running a little bit low on time. Leo has Sun and Mercury in the first house. That's normally a good combination, but we have a Sasha Yoga aspect in that, and Sasha Yogas are essentially negative. They're they make Saturn very strong. So a lot of people will feel like they really have to focus on themselves, but they'll feel themselves getting lost in their responsibilities or their relationship obligations. And this will last for about another 2 weeks when the sun enters this sign, and they'll start focusing more on career and more on being nice to other people. But this Sun Mercury conjunction is a little bit difficult. Mercury's about 6 degrees away from the sun, so it's combust, but it really isn't a serious. Mercury combust is really not a really serious phenomenon. It'll put a lot of focus on financial gains. This sign will have a lot of financial gains, a lot of anger, a lot of courage, and certainly a certain amount of unhappiness in relationship life and a feeling that they have a lot of responsibilities and a certain amount of depression. Good for savings, though. Venus in the 12th house is very good for savings. For Virgo, Mars is in the first house. That gives what's called Mars affliction. It's aspecting Moon. There'll be a lot of interaction with spouse, maybe even some changes happening in the spouse or the spouse's health. And the Jupiter Rahu conjunction is in the eighth house. I think a lot of times when you see combinations like this, um, spouses will have health issues or they'll focus on it. Again, we're still in the backwash of a full moon, and anything that happened as a result of strain after because of the moon passing over Saturn, that'll show up today because that aspect will be off. Um, K2's in the second house. Um, again, makes the sign difficult to understand, but actually very intuitive. Saturn in the sixth, they have to watch out for overexertion. Jupiter in the eighth, some potential for windfalls, but they'll get delayed or sometimes denied. Venus is in the 11th house, good for financial gains. Sun and Mercury are in the 12th house, good for focusing on earnings and career, but a lot of isolation for the sign. For Libra, Libra has no planets in the first house, or excuse me, K2 in the first house, Rahu in the seventh. So there'll be this constant attention the relationship partners need. Mars is in the 12th. This is another form of Mars affliction. And basically, for this chart, so there'll be arguments with spouse or they'll seem to be almost never ending. So a couple of days will be peace and then that'll pop up again. But one of the good things about this combination is Saturn's in the fifth house. That's a good planet for Libra, Sun and rising. And Jupiter's in the seventh. It gives potential relationship opportunities, but again, it's something I wouldn't really recommend getting into any long-term relationships, especially not for a couple of months. It's just probably not until the end of November. And it's mainly because this combination tends to give really bad judgment in relationships, um, and also bad judgment in partnerships. So there's some potential for fame. A lot of people may be attracted to that, but it may not be worth the price you have to pay. The good thing is Jupiter's aspecting the 11th house, so it should be good for financial gains and good for career for this sign, for Libra. Scorpio has no planets in the first house. Lord of the first is in the 11th, so that gives good potential for financial gains, especially through property. K2's in the 12th. So again, unexpected expenses probably due to repairs. Saturn's aspecting the first house. This sign will feel like it has to work hard. Moon is in the fifth house. A lot of attention on relationship partners, a lot of attention on children. And Venus is in Jupiter's in the sixth. So there'll be some opposition or interference from teachers or authority figures. Venus is Lord of the seventh and the ninth. That's actually good for career growth, especially after September 4th. And Sun and Mercury are in the 10th house. So although career will be hard, there'll be a lot of hard work connected with career. It's actually a good time for career. For Sagittarius has Saturn is aspected by Mars in the first house, so we'll get a good boost of energy. Capricorn's in the second house is, and its Lord is in the third house, so there'll be a lot of ambition for money. Moon is in the fourth house, so some change of perspective, some anxiety. Rahu and Jupiter are in the fifth house of politics, but also past life credit. So again, there'll be this feeling that you have to negotiate any gains you get. You'll have to be wary of people pulling tricks on you. Venus is in the eighth house, some potential for unexpected windfalls, and Sun and Mercury are in the ninth. That's good for financial success, and Mars is in the 10th. That's excellent for financial success. Again, don't trust your friends. This is going to be a theme for Sag until December. For Capricorn has Saturn in the second house. That gives a lot of focus on money, but money is earned the hard way. You have to go back and do things over again. Moon is in the third house. There's not a lot of desire to rock the boat. Jupiter's in the fourth house along with Rahu. Some upset at home, some problems with relationship members, and Venus is in the seventh house. So you'll be introduced to beautiful people. But again, they'll be wanting to ride on your coattails to further their own careers, not to really. So again, I realize this is a very negative reading, and I apologize for that. But a lot of this will start to flip and start to get a little bit more normal within about a week. Okay, so just hang in there. And Sun and Mercury are in the eighth house, so that there can be some problems with confidence in the sign and also with luck. Mars is in the ninth house, which is very good for this rising sign or this sun sign. It'll give a lot of increased financial growth. So, although it does look superficially difficult for Capricorn, there is financial growth promised this month. For Aquarius's Lord is in the first house, so it gives this sign great capacity to command or lead or to advise people. Moon is in the second house. Changeable situation with money, so money will start to seem a little bit tighter or a little bit more constricted than it has been. That'll continue really until around Thursday or Friday this week, but then you'll start to see kind of a loosening of that tightness, less anxiety. Venus is in the sixth house, not a good position for this sign. So again, some potential for feeling run down or a little bit tired. And Sun and Mercury are in the seventh house. Relationship partners want a lot of attention and a lot of focus on their livelihood, on their well-being. Mars is in the eighth. This is another Mars affliction combination. They're pretty much all over this chart, especially for Leo. I'm sorry, especially for Leo, Virgo, Libra, and also for Capricorn, for Aquarius and Pisces. So that's just something you'll have to deal with. Just no new business partners this month for this sign. The other thing is, in terms of the chart, Saturn's aspecting Rahu and Jupiter, so the planet will have a lot of ambition, a lot of desire for self-improvement, but they'll feel blocked in ways. But there will be an increase in money and some unexpected windfalls from property. some unexpected or people not heard from in a long time coming back into your life as well during this next week. Pisces has Mars in the seventh house. Again, I said it's a Mars affliction combination, so difficulty in relationships. But Moon is in the first house. It's the fifth lord. That's really good. So to make the sign kind of lucky this week. And Jupiter and Rahu are in the second house, so strong desire for money, strong desire for financial progress. Venus is in the fifth, some potential for romantic relationships, although creativity is actually more of a result of this particular combination. Sun and Mercury are in the sixth house. That's not a bad combination for this rising sign. They'll give it a lot of courage, a lot of ambition, a lot of competitiveness. Mars is in the seventh. Um, Relationship partners will seem to be hostile or difficult. Ketu's in the eighth. Again, a lot of interest in metaphysics or spiritual life. And Saturn's in the 12th. You have to be careful about spending money. So that's it for this particular sign. But money problems show up in a lot of placements in this chart. That's one of the reasons I've been saying there are going to be money issues over the next few months. And that's uh, mainly we're looking for the period running up to the eclipses in late October. So let's go to the time and space chart. I don't have a lot. I have space, but I don't have a lot of time. What a horrible pun. Let's look at this chart. Well, we'll see where some of the areas of concern are. So we can see some potential for um, this is some potential for flooding in Hawaii, oddly enough. This is more towards Kauai and the western part of the islands. And there's a Rahu sign, so some panic connected with Hawaii, maybe even some scandal. I know a lot of the fire victims really feel left behind. At least that's what I'm seeing on the news, and I do pay attention to the news. There is some potential for flooding or for water or air incidents up here in Western Canada. And let's see now, we have a Jupiter line going up through, looks like California and through Oregon and into Washington and into Idaho and I was into Western Canada. So we can expect to see some political scandals here and even some economic downturns in Montana and Canada. Some governmental pressure being placed on Montana all the way down through New Mexico and northern Mexico. And there'll be a lot of news coming out of North and South Dakota, Kansas, and Missouri, and Texas, and down through central Mexico. We have Mars in over the Great Lakes region, especially Michigan. So there'll be some. So essentially, I've seen a lot on the news lately about, or a little bit on the news lately about the governor of Michigan. And also, we've seen a lot about Governor DeSantis. So this line is passing through. I'm sorry, through Georgia and through Florida. So we know there's a lot going on in Georgia because of the Trump indictments. But this also shows some issues happening in Kentucky and Tennessee. Mitch McConnell has those famous blackouts who we've been seeing, and also down near Nicaragua and Panama. I'm sorry, in Guatemala. My apologies. And some violence in these areas too. So essentially from roughly This isn't quite Toronto. Toronto is more over here, but this is more around the area north of the Great Lakes in Canada, and all the way down through Ohio, Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia, and Florida, especially the Panhandle. And that could mean weather wildness, obviously. Um, we have a moon line running through Massachusetts, so again, some danger of flooding. And definitely, we know the Dominican Republic and Haiti are in major trouble right now. That's something which is not really a surprise. Also, some violence in Cuba, by the way. I just want to mention that. And um, so there'll be governmental changes in Venezuela, or governmental disruption is in Venezuela, down through Colombia, down through Bolivia, down through Chile and Peru and Ecuador, and even into Argentina. Political scandal in Argentina, and up through Brazil and Guyana. Venus and Jupiter are hitting right at the top of Brazil right here. This indicates to me some flooding problems and some ethical issues coming up. And Venus line is going up through Iceland, so some potential for flooding or storms up there. Um, and maybe even some political issues around that part of the world. We have Saturn. Um, let's see what this line is. A sun line and uh, Mercury line running up through Ireland, Scotland, and a Mars line running right through France. So this cluster, this region, all the way through Italy, all the way through Germany, a lot of violence in France still. Okay, a lot of violence down here in um, Niger, and even down into Algeria. Some violence in Libya over here, and a lot of public attention being paid to Italy and Denmark and Norway and Sweden because of these lines over here. Central Africa seems to be caught in a Rahu line, so there'll be panic, or there'll be um, some domestic issues in those parts of the world, maybe even some attempts to overthrow governments. We have a Jupiter line running through um, West Africa over Mozambique. I'm sorry, not over Mozambique, over Madagascar, and a Jupiter line. So Madagascar maybe, and Saudi Arabia, and United Arab Emirates may be in for some changes. And especially over here, Ukraine, we're not seeing an anti-Ukrainian hostilities or the war soon. I wish we were, but we're not seeing it soon. There's a Saturn line running right over Pakistan and Afghanistan. Those two countries will continue to suffer. Sun and Mercury line, we'll hear a lot about India, and um, especially Western India near Delhi and Central India down through the Tamil Nadu region, about political struggles there. And I have to wrap it up. The other spots I'm worried about are the Mars Rahu conjunction, the Moon Rahu conjunction, heading over China, and almost influence on almost all of Southeast Asia, and flooding and danger of political scandal in Japan, all the way through Australia and even New Zealand. So that's it for this week. I got to run. I went a little bit over, I think. And I'll see you next week, folks. All right. Bye bye, everyone, and have a wonderful week. I love you all. And please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Bye bye.